Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Randy Zadra, and I'll be your Master of Ceremonies for today's event. It's a great pleasure for Carleton University to host this event today. And on behalf of our partners, the Embassy of Italy, the University of Toronto, and the Public Policy Forum, I'd like to welcome you today. Vorrei dare il benvenuto in particolare a tutti i nostri illustri ospiti che vengono d'Italia. Spero che il nostro scambio di idee porterà a nuovi progetti insieme. I would also like to welcome the people who are watching the event live on the internet. We're very glad that you're able to join us wherever you may be in Canada, in Italy, or around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, we have an exceptional group of participants for this event, including a very highly distinguished guest. Mesdames et messieurs, veuillez vous lever, s'il vous plaît, pour l'arrivée de Son Excellence, le très honorable David Johnston, gouverneur général du Canada. Signore e signori, si alzano per cortesia per l'arrivo di Sua Eccellenza l'Onorevole David Johnston, Governatore Generale del Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please rise for the arrival of His Excellency, the Right Honourable David Johnston, Governor General of Canada. I would like to ask Dr. Roseanne Runte, President and Vice Chancellor of Carleton University, to come to the podium.
Please be seated. A year ago, when we had this a similar conference organized with Italy, I said to the ambassador that I had a great deal of admiration for the country of Italy, not because of all of the things that you usually think about, like the wonderful food and the culture and the centuries of scientific advancement, but because they had the intelligence to put a number of university professors and presidents in their cabinet and in their government. And I thought, surely this is an enlightened country. Today, I can talk about Canada as a truly enlightened country because there are very few countries in the world, indeed, where a governor general has been a professor, where a governor general has been president of several universities, and where the Governor General has been responsible for the economic revival and development of a major part of the province and the country. It is a great pleasure to live in Canada, where we have indeed such a Governor General. And I would now like to invite His Excellency, the Right Honourable David Johnston, to speak. Je voudrais maintenant inviter Son Excellence, le très honorable David Johnston, à nous adresser la parole. Vorrei ora invitare Sua Eccellenza l'Onorevole David Johnston a prendere la parola.
Well, thank you, Roseanne, for that wonderful trilingual introduction. Speaker Kinsella, Excellency, Minister Goodyear, President Runte, distinguished guests, dear participants, what a joy it is to be with you for a conference of this kind, focusing on innovation and spin-offs. I'm especially delighted to be here because I have such a love for the country Italy. It goes back many, many years. I should confess to you that my favorite European city is Florence, and that relates to the 16th century. If you think of Florence, that little town of 30,000 people on the banks of the Arno River was the cradle of the Renaissance, looking back to the classics and taking us forward into the new age of enlightenment. In that one little town, you had Michelangelo in sculpture and art. You had Leonardo in painting and in engineering. You had Savonarola in religion. You had Dante, who 3 or 4 centuries before had invented the Italian language. You had Machiavelli, who in fact wrote the first bestseller. Up to that point of time, the printing press was exploited for religious subjects, and he wrote a bestseller on power, which of course developed in every citizen the capacity to read and learn for himself or herself. And I've often wondered what were in the waters of the Arno River that gave such creativity, such stimulation across disciplines. And of course, there's a spin-off effect, isn't there, that intelligence, brilliance in one sector leads to intelligence and brilliance in another sector. And that's really what I'm going to speak about today, that kind of quality of the water in the Arno River that produces great initiatives and innovation. Europe and Canada have been partners for a long time in a variety of fields, and it's great to see this Italian-Canadian combination. One needn't be an economist to understand that there are many challenges in today's economy. And because of these challenges, it's even more important that we create more opportunities to think and to act creatively. Necessity is, and should be, the mother of invention and innovation. Spin-off or startup companies, some of which find their origin on our campuses, are nothing new, and in fact have been quite commonplace in our history. Dans nos universités, l'enseignement est à la base de ces projets d'entreprise qui peuvent ensuite déboucher sur des activités de recherche et d'expérimentation, puis sur des applications pratiques. Ce ne sont là que quelques des tremplins nécessaires au lancement d'une entreprise. Le degré de réussite des entrepreneurs repose sur de nombreux facteurs, parmi lesquels figure tout particulièrement la somme d'énergie créative et innovatrice consacrée au projet, ainsi que les exigences des investisseurs et des clients. Autrement dit, il y a des facteurs à la fois internes et externes qui entrent en jeu. Internally, innovation is not a one-directional linear process from education and fundamental research to experimentation to practical application in business. Innovation occurs back and forth at various points in that linear story. I think the definition offered by John Gertner in his book, The Idea Factory, I recommend that book to you if you haven't read it. It's the story of the Bell Labs, that great Florence of engineering that we saw throughout the 20th century. John Gertner in his book, The Idea Factory, is one of the best ways to define innovation. John Gertner wrote, if an idea begat a discovery, and if a discovery begat an invention, then an innovation defined the lengthy and wholesale transformation of an idea into a technological product or process meant for widespread practical use. I often say innovation is very simple to describe. It's either crafting a new idea or taking an idea and apply it to improve something. And that improvement is usually a series of steps, not simply one. Innovation, Gertner goes on to say, cannot be fostered by one person. I think of Wilder Penfield's great autobiography, No Man Alone, No Person Alone. It can't be fostered by one person, but by several people working on various aspects. The process of innovation is shared, collaborative. This linear story with many dimensions and the ability to go back and forth along the line is a great strength that our startups and spin-offs have in common. Let me tell you 2 stories that illustrate a little bit of that. One of them comes, and I'm reaching for my BlackBerry, which I gave up just a few moments ago because Nick and Joanne don't allow me up here with my BlackBerry. I do interesting things with it on a podium, but if I had it on my belt, Cammie's got it there. Bring it up, Cammie, so I can hold it and feel like I have my security blanket at hand. Thank you very much. Thank you. There we are. I'm from Waterloo County. You never go away from home without your BlackBerry. This is a BlackBerry story. It started in 1984. Mike Lazaridis was an electrical and computer engineering co-op student at the University of Waterloo. And for those from away, at the University of Waterloo, all of our engineers obtain their education by alternating 6 4-month work terms with 8 4-month academic terms back and forth. So Mike was on a co-op term, and like many of our students, instead of working for an employer, he was working on a startup company. And it was going rather well in the 4 months. So he went to the associate dean and said, could I stay out for another term? And the associate dean said, well, okay, but that's it. Another 4-month term, and it was really going well. And he, in fact, did not come back, did not finish his degree, is a dropout, although he always would counsel students that they should complete the degree. The reason he didn't complete his degree is because by 8 months he had 4 or 5 people working for him who'd given up promising opportunities to do other things, to come and to stake their fortune, stake their life with him in this enterprise. And he felt a dependence, a responsibility to them. And of course, from that came what we now have today as BlackBerry some years later. I recall Mike speaking to our students, later became chancellor of the university, and he was explaining to them how important that formation was for him in those university years. He said, we're in a very competitive business. You know the competitors we're dealing with. And we have been successful because we have been able to take the basic laws of science, the fundamental laws of science, and use them a little bit better than other people. We've managed heat better than others. We've managed miniaturization better than others. And we have managed radio waves better than others. But every day we are reinventing using basic principles of science and try to innovate in ways that keep us ahead of our competitors. The second story is related to that, and it gives me great hope because, as many of you know, RIM is going through the challenge that often happens with companies that are on a wonderful trampoline, and then things happen in the competitive world, and there's a bit of a pause. And for this great Canadian company, RIM, there is a great deal of reliance placed on its next platform of BlackBerries, the BlackBerry 10, which will be out in the first quarter of 2013. And it's built around a system called QNX, which was developed right here in Ottawa. And QNX illustrates some of the points I'm making. QNX started this way. 2 individuals, Danny Dodge and Gord Bell, were doing master's degrees at the University of Waterloo. And in their thesis work, they had access to the computer, in fact, unlimited access in terms of time, which was quite precious, but important for graduate students. They graduated with their theses, and they came to Ottawa and began to work for Bell Northern Research on an important project. But on evenings and weekends, they began to work on one other thing. That other thing was the platform, the operating system platform that led to the development of the company QNX. Their accounts to have free access to the computers at the University of Waterloo were not closed down. Now, I like to think, Roseanne, it was because a brilliant university president or whoever was her supervisor looking after the computer said, let bright students stay on even after they graduate, rather than negligence not following up on the overuse of the computer. And so for about 8 years, they were actually developing their company with all of this experimental work on the University of Waterloo computers. They then left Bell Northern, formed QNX, and ultimately was purchased by RIM for $200 million, and in fact will be the operating system for BlackBerry 10, in which there is great hope. Well, you know, that's another very interesting illustration of this lovely story of the different actors in the pieces of innovation, with some perhaps fortuitous events, and I hope the use of those computers was not fortuitous, but it was a brilliant management decision by someone at the University of Waterloo. The lovely sequel to the story is I got to know Danny and Gord well. In fact, I served on their board when they were a private company because they wanted to go public, and I'm interested in this kind of thing, securities regulation, public financing, and so on. And when they didn't go public, they sold a large interest to Harman, a large U.S. company, and they became reasonably wealthy in a short period of time, and they each gave $1 million back to the University of Waterloo. And Roseanne, as you'd expect, I expressed the gratitude, the enormous gratitude of the 130,000 alumni and the 30,000 students and the staff and students at the University of Waterloo, and they said, gratitude has nothing to do with it, we're just paying the rent. A startup or spin-off requires support from many sources to stay afloat. One of the ways we do this is by expanding our knowledge in different ways, including beyond borders. And that's why what you're doing here today, I think, is so important. I'm just passionate about the influence that educational institutions like this one can have on our economic development. Carleton has been at the center of more than 150 spin-off countries, has been creating programs between many countries, including Italy, to promote the exchange of student and ideas. And it's through this increase in sharing that we are able to increase our potential, utilizing what I call the diplomacy of knowledge. Canada, Carleton, Italy can benefit both our countries. Let me explain what I mean by the diplomacy of knowledge. It's our ability and willingness to work together and share the knowledge we uncover and refine across disciplines and across borders to improve the human condition together. One of my favorite metaphors is a candle. Jefferson once referred to a candle in this way as the candle representing knowledge or learning. And he said, when you light your unlit candle from my lit candle, my light is not diminished, it's enhanced. For our purposes here today, I want to stress one particular aspect, across borders. Across borders. Now, this dimension includes both the geographical and the intercultural. While the diplomacy of knowledge operates on many geographic levels, local, regional, national, I believe it is particularly potent when we cross international borders and cultivate closer contacts and interactions among educators, entrepreneurs, researchers, students, and schools from different countries, each of whom brings his or her own cultural apparatus to the equation. The engagement of different cultural points of view gives us a finer calculus for innovation. Rapid advances in communication technologies have made it easier for us to make these initial connections, but once the connections are made, we must bring ideas and necessity together across borders, across cultures, and across disciplines. It's here where we can take full advantage of the diplomacy of knowledge through the sharing of ideas. As we look at things from different perspectives, we strengthen our views and our conclusions, much as surveyors using a theodolite to triangulate distances by measuring horizontal and vertical angles. This tripod of cross-cultural exchange is a fundamental human activity, and it begins with people like all of you talking with each other, connecting, intersecting, triangulating. One of the ways I illustrate this to students is I tell a story about how different disciplines approach things and good things happen. It's the university president, first year, greeting all of the students there in the main campus, green, etc. And he says to them, they're engineers, they're science students, the brilliant physicists, and art students, 3 different groups. I have a little puzzle for you. I have a little challenge. You see the legendary clock tower at the beginning, opening of our campus there. Been here for years and years and years. Very tall. I would like you to find as quickly as possible the height of that clock tower and come back and tell me. And I'm going to give you a little help. And he illustrated several of these instruments called theodolites or transoms used for measuring angles. Well, of course, the physics students immediately went over, grabbed the instrument, and began deploying themselves in various parts of the campus, measuring the angles, doing their calculations, all very methodically, tackled the problem in that way. The engineering students grabbed the thing and they turned it over this way, that way, looked it around, couldn't quite figure out what it was used for, but one of them took it and ran up to the top of the clock tower, had a watch on his wrist, and he dropped the thing, and when he heard it smash at the bottom, he timed the amount of time from top to bottom, did the calculation, and that was his answer. The art students just wandered over to the porter's lodge and said to the porter, "How tall is the clock tower?" Each a little different. Each of them came to a conclusion. Education leads to innovation. Innovation can spark collaboration. And those partnerships bring us back to learning new and exciting things. I commend you for using this occasion to create new opportunities for entrepreneurs to thrive. We can learn so much from one another, from our successes and from our failures as well. Let us utilize what we learn in this room on behalf of our startups and spin-offs so they gain the full benefit of our diplomacy of knowledge. Merci.
Thank you, Your Excellency. We're really honored that you're able to spend some time with us today and partake in what we call here at Carleton solving real-world problems. And clearly, what you have illustrated is a great indication of your vast experience in this. So thank you so much for dedicating some time to our event. Now, I would like to invite Howard Alper, Chair of Science and Technology Innovation Council of Canada, to come to the podium to introduce the Honourable Gary Goodyear.
Your Excellency, Speaker Kinsella, Minister Goodyear, Ambassador Maloney, and President Runte, and distinguished guests. It's really a privilege to have the opportunity to introduce Gary Goodyear, the Honourable Gary Goodyear, Minister of State for Science and Technology. Minister Goodyear was elected to the House of Commons to Parliament in 2004, and approximately 4 years ago, the Prime Minister appointed him to the position as Minister of State for Science and Technology. Subsequently, he was also appointed with a responsibility as Minister of State for the Federal Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario, perhaps better known as FedDev. Prior to entering politics, Minister Goodyear was a chiropractor. He also participated in other activities, including advising investment firms in the biomedical area. What perhaps not many of you know is his dedication to athletics on a personal basis, and also working with others in terms of athletic activities. He was chair, medical services chair for the Ontario Special Olympics. In my view, he shines as a quintessential example of a minister and member of parliament who works for the benefit of his constituency. And finally, he's a dedicated family man. With respect to today's activities in terms of science, technology, and innovation, he's the champion for Canada in this regard. And Minister Goodyear understands well the importance of institutions and programs in Canada being amongst the best in the world. Towards that end, this government has made some spectacular investment, bold investments in programs such as the Vanier Predoctoral Scholarships, valued at $50,000 a year, tax-free, the Banting Postdoctoral Fellowships at $70,000 a year, the Canada Excellence Research Chairs, $10 million over a period of 7 years, all announced during the tenure of Minister Goodyear. And those investments, first of all, foreigners are eligible to compete with Canadians for these awards. That was unprecedented. But second of all, they have already started to change the landscape in Canada in enhancing the reputation and position of Canada in the world. That is really important. In terms of spin-offs and startups, the subject matter for today, in recent times there have been substantial investments, additional investments in the Industrial Research Assistance Program, IRAP, administered by NRC. And the success of the rather new, a little over 2 years, Canadian Innovation Commercialization Program is noteworthy and important in this regard. So, Minister Goodyear, thank you for leading the way, and we look forward to your remarks.
Merci, grazie. Thank you, Howard, for those kind remarks. Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. C'est un plaisir pour moi d'être avec vous ce matin pour cette importante conférence qui, de plus, est très opportune. Ladies and gentlemen, as I was listening to the speakers this morning, I had Mick Jagger singing in the back of my head, his famous song, "Start Me Up and Spin Me Off." So I think that should have been the theme song for our thing this morning. But good morning again, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a great pleasure to join you this morning. Let me thank His Excellency Andrea Meloni, Ambassador of Italy, the Republic of Italy, for his invitation to be here this morning and for a great event last night, sir. That was wonderful, and I appreciate that. I also want to acknowledge the presence of His Excellency, the Right Honourable David Johnston, Governor-General of Canada, for your great message, inspirational message about the diplomacy of knowledge. I bring all of you, and indeed to you, sir, greetings from the Prime Minister for this morning's event. I, too, I should tell you, do not have my BlackBerry. There must be a conspiracy with our teams for those folks from the Kitchener-Waterloo-Cambridge area. They don't let us on stage with our BlackBerries. Ladies and gentlemen, Canada and Italy have strong economic ties. Each is a major import and export market for the other. But what has brought us together today is really that our two countries understand and frankly appreciate the idea of innovation. Partnerships between government, academia, and the private sector are some of our mutual key economic drivers. Collaboration in science and technology is part of the foundation on which our economic relationships are built. And since Canada's Science and Tech Strategy was launched in 2007, our government has invested nearly $8 billion new dollars to support science and technology and help stimulate economic activity as a result. Through this strategy, we have redefined the way governments, business people, and the research community band together, collaborate, and drive economic activity through science. We are making it easier for businesses to innovate by improving the links between public research and private sector needs. This is done through a number of government programs that help companies partner with our universities and our colleges. And in this way, the private sector and academia have common access to research networks, research facilities, and of course, young research talent. Economic Action Plan 2012, our budget for this year, doubled the size of one of the most successful programs that we have, the Industrial Research Assistance Program. We did this to significantly enhance the support for research and development performed by our small and medium-sized companies across the country. In addition to this historic support, our government is making changes at the National Research Council of Canada. We will refocus the Council to a more business-oriented research model that will also help the private sector innovate and do more research and development. And our government, of course, is also helping the high-growth firms access risk capital by investing some $400 million toward the creation of large-scale venture capital funds that will, of course, be led by the private sector. There is so much more that we can do and we should do together to encourage economic growth, development, better jobs, higher-paying jobs, and ultimately a better quality of life for our citizens. I believe it is in our respective best interests to continue to partner on innovation through foreign direct investment, through technology transfer between our companies, and through expanded networks of cooperation that link our universities, our research institutes, and our business communities, and I feel very confident that we will succeed on all fronts. Congratulations on the conference. Please enjoy the conference today. Merci, grazie. Thank you very much.
Thank you kindly, Minister Goodyear, for making time in your busy schedule to be with us today. And I understand This is the second time in 2 days that the minister has been at Carleton, so clearly the 140 spin-offs we've had here over the last number of years have made an impact in Canada, hopefully. Thank you, Minister. Now I would like to introduce Ambassador Andrea Meloni. Since his arrival in Canada, Ambassador Meloni, the innovation agenda since your arrival between our two countries, I must say, has taken a great leap forward. This is one of a series of important events we have undertaken together in the last few years. And with the help of Emanuele Fiore, who's the Science and Technology Counselor sitting right here in front of me, we're jointly committed, really, to explore and find real-world solutions which will power the next phase of economic growth of our two countries. And I know we're going to hear a lot about this today. I'd like to invite Dr. Meloni to make some remarks, especially about some of the important changes taking place in Italy today. Ambassador Meloni, please.
Your Excellency, the Governor General, Speaker Kinsella, President Runte, and dear participants from Canada and Italy. Your Excellency, in fact, I lack the words to express the gratitude for the extraordinary honor of your presence here. And I would like to say this on behalf of the other co-partners in this initiative, of course, Carleton University and President Runte, but also University of Toronto, President Naylor, who is today represented by Peter Lewis, and Public Policy Forum with President Mitchell. You said in your remarks that one cannot work alone. In fact, that's true for innovation. That's true also for trying to put together minds and people from various countries. In fact, the cooperation and what the three institutions have done, the generosity they have worked with us since January, in fact, has been really remarkable. So I want to thank them very much. Your address today has been a source of inspiration. Diplomacy of knowledge, of course, for us is a great challenge. It's a great formula, but also full of content as well. And of course, your presence for us Italians, it will will give a new, powerful impulse to our work. As Rendrizada just said, science, innovation, research has been, in fact, my first priority, number one priority, since my arrival here almost 3 years ago. I'm profoundly convinced of that. I have to say that for a remarkable coincidence, today the President of the Republic, Giorgio Napolitano, is in Madrid for a very important European innovation meeting at COTEC. So this gives, of course, the idea of the level of priority that this matter have. I want to, of course, he's left, but thanks so much, Minister Gaudier, for what we are trying to do at the level of the two administrations and government. We organized, I think, in 2010 with Carleton and others, McGill, in fact, a meeting on aerospace. Last year with the University of Ottawa, as Mona Nemer is here, on joint scientific project put together more or less 15 European, Canadian, Italian and Canadian universities. Meetings are important. You have recalled this. You have established connection. I understand that at the universities, in the academy, as many other fields. In fact, personal connection are the key. Without personal connection, there is no trust, and if there is no trust, you cannot work together. So meetings are useful, but they're not the only aim. Our aim is to have concrete results from the meeting, as Suzanne Fortier keep repeating me, by the way. And so I'm very pleased to announce to you all that yesterday there was a signature of two very concrete agreements between ANSERC and Consiglio Nazionale Ricerca. We have his president here. For a very specific, for a variety of things, but especially starting with a very specific project on materials, automotive, and I understand that we'll travel tomorrow to Waterloo, of all the places, for having intense discussion there. And the second agreement is between University of Toronto and Polytechnic Torino, which is one, of course, of our great institutions, especially in engineering, between the two faculties of engineering. So I'm very pleased because of this sense of concrete results. And so, in fact, I feel confident that now the conditions are there for a starting discussion between Canada and Italy on a sort of overarching agreement in this field. Not so much, of course, to put fresh money in it. I don't know about Canada, but Italy cannot put fresh money in it. But in order to define jointly shared priorities, where the academy, but the industry, the funding agency in each country can jointly decide to put their various kind of funding resources together. And this will be certainly quite important. I hope we can work in the next few months on that. And I've spoken with Mr. Goodyear about that. Je voudrais remercier vous tous pour être ici. Je dois dire qu'il y a plusieurs personnes qui viennent d'Italie pour cette conférence, au moins une trentaine entre universités, instituts de recherche et en fait, représentants de l'industrie. Et aussi beaucoup de Canadiens, pas seulement d'Ottawa, de Toronto ou Montréal, mais partout par le Canada, et de Vancouver, avec les Triumph et les autres, de Calgary, d'Edmonton, de Regina et de Winnipeg, en fait. Je souhaite saluer en particulier, si vous me permettez, les chercheurs, les professeurs italiens qui travaillent ici au Canada. Il y a bien sûr une très grande communauté canadien-italien, c'est bien connu, mais il y a aussi une communauté d'Italiens qui sont venus ici dans les derniers 20, 15, 10 ans, 5 ans, et qui travaillent et qui donnent je crois, une contribution très significative à la science et la recherche canadienne. Et bien sûr, il y a toute une polémique en Italie. Est-ce qu'il s'agit là d'un brain drain? Mais peut-être, mais je préfère considérer les opportunités qu'ils donnent comme des ponts entre l'Italie et le Canada. Ils ont toute une série de relations à faire valoir. Alors, je les salue. Italy, of course, it's well known, goes through, in fact, the most difficult period since the war in economic and financial terms. And as you know, the government has taken in the last 10 months now a series of bold, firm, difficult measures which have, in fact, saved Italy. And now the government is working actively with its European partner on the twin tracks of financial stability, is well known, but also growth. And it's clear from my government that innovation is a key element of any growth strategy. And as you said, you cannot have a real program of innovation without putting it in the framework of international collaboration. And in these very days, the government is considering a second set of measures for stimulating growth. And I would say that it has many components. Two of the components are, in fact, measures for favoring the startups, which is the subject matter of this, but also another aspect, which is called digital agenda. Et nous avons le plaisir d'avoir aujourd'hui deux de proches collaborateurs, à la fois du ministre de la Recherche et de l'Université et du ministre du Développement économique, un vidéolink de Rome, et ils pourront nous donner les points sur les discussions dans ce point. Je crois comprendre que le gouvernement pourrait approuver cette mesure le jeudi prochain. We have on this strategy a strong support by the industry, which is, of course, absolutely necessary. And the president of Confindustria, which is the Federation of Business Associations in Italy, very influential indeed, Georgios Quincy, wrote me a letter on the occasion of this conference. And I would like, if you allow me, just to read one line. He says, among other things, I read in Italian first, chi riesce ancora a stare sul mercato è solo chi migliora costantemente i propri prodotti investendo in ricerca e innovazione, in qualità delle risorse umane, in reti di collaborazione. So those who still succeed to stay on the global market are those who improve every day their products through research and innovation, through the quality of human resources, through networks of collaborations. And then he says, I am, since always, convinced that Canada represents a perfect opportunity of collaboration for our companies. He knows very well what he talks about because he is the owner of let's say, a multinational company, medium-large multinational company, and the first investment outside Europe, perhaps outside Italy, was made some 30 years ago in Laval, Quebec. So, Your Excellency, in concluding my remarks, I would like to convey maybe three messages for today. The first one is that Italy, more than ever, is open for business. In fact, even during this crisis, our export in 2011 have increased markedly. I mean, our companies are still capable to go abroad and compete. Italy wants to keep its place in the world as a key manufacturing country through innovation and international collaboration. That's the second message. Third, we would like to have Canada as a privileged partner in this endeavor. Canada, this great, allied, generous nation. Thanks so much. Merci. Grazie.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Merloni, for those very thoughtful, very appropriate, and very family-like remarks. We have a long history between Canada and Italy, and so let's see what we can do together during the day today.
Probably all wished he had continued to forget and I wouldn't stand up again. Excellency, Mr. Speaker, Excellency, all of the audience, welcome to Carleton University. Welcome to the President of the National Research and Science and Engineering Council. Welcome to my fellow university presidents and vice presidents. I see Ottawa and Windsor here. Welcome to all of you. This is a splendid day at Carleton. You will see a university that embraces its environment, visibly a beautiful environment, but also a high-tech environment. Innovation and entrepreneurship require a few elements. First, great ideas, innovation, creativity. Second, they need a lot of work, diligence, and courage. Third, they need enlightened government policy. And fourth, they need incredible bridges built of human beings who help one and another. Let's start off with the idea. And there is a great idea in 1909. Guillermo Marconi won the Nobel Prize for a telecommunications invention that started in, well, he put it together in 1901 on Signal Hill in Newfoundland when he attempted to do the first transatlantic transmission. Now, Signal Hill in December is not a really pleasant place to stand up and try sending out messages. There was a lot of fog and a lot of wind. He couldn't get his wires up. He finally had to get a kite. And, you know, well, they say go fly a kite. Well, he flew a kite and got the transmitter up and successfully made the first transmission. Great idea, great effort. It happened. Happened between Canada and Italy. Something magic about that, something pretentious for today. Second thing that you really, really need is that diligent, hard work and effort, because sending that transmission the first time wasn't enough. You had to build the tower. You had to have permission to build the tower. There were a few regulations that prevented Newfoundland, which was not at that time really part of Canada, from constructing the tower. There was a monopoly. And Cape Breton stepped up, and the tower was built in Cape Breton, and Canada was able, through enlightened policy, and Marconi, by not giving up from the obstacles of nature, the obstacles of science, and the obstacles of policy, to achieve what he intended to do. The final thing is human relations. And we all know that over the years, many Italians have come and settled in Canada. Many of the beautiful buildings that we have in all of our cities were built by Italian workers. They built them not just out of concrete and stone, but they built them with artistry and care and love, and they are buildings that have lasted and will continue to last. So today, we can build on their efforts to make a new generation of communications, a new generation of science and technology that will continue bridging the oceans and bringing our people together. I believe that there is not even 6 degrees of separation. The last time I was in Rome, I got in the taxi cab driving downtown Rome. And the driver turns around and says to me, "You're not from Italy, are you?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Where are you from?" I said, "Canada." He said, "Oh, you must know my cousin. He lives in Ottawa." You know, and I thought to myself, how silly could he be? I said, I doubt it. What's your cousin's name? His cousin was chief of protocol for the provincial government, and I sure did know his cousin. Small world. And that is the kind of world and coincidence which builds those bridges that we can work on together to make a next generation. Because Marconi started with the wireless, RIM continued with beautiful BlackBerries, and a year ago, our students invented a new way to wire them so that they'll last twice as long. Next generation will find out tomorrow. So thank you all very much. Thank you for being at Carleton. And Excellency, thank you so much for gracing us with your pleasure. And Ambassador, thank you so much for your hard work. And David Mitchell, thank you so much for co-sponsoring this. Thank you.